Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This is the Out of Class edition with Ben, Janesh, and Matt. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lifelong Learner. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Ben. How you doing?
Mate, good to see you. Good to see Matty. Good to see Matty's back in Australia for a little bit.
Good morning, boys.
Right, so you've been back for a couple weeks, 3 weeks now.
3 weeks.
How's it been since landing back, kind of working on a project and coming back, and everyone's sometimes like, you're like, has anything changed since I left? How's it all been?
I was saying before, the weather's changed. It's cold. But it's been really good. I think it's nice kind of rebounding between two places where you've got people at either end, because I don't mind. I like traveling, but never ending travel, you don't get any depth. And this way it feels really good because I get connection at both ends, and you get people missing you at both ends, hopefully. And you get people looking forward to having you back at both ends. And it's quite a nice, it's really nice.
Are you feeling popular?
Yeah. It's created this perfect illusion of people like you. But also you get trapped in this gratitude cycle because there's so many things that first world countries are better than third world countries at, like organization, efficiency, often like just basic things that you take for granted, like cleanliness as well. Like I really notice that when I come back to Melbourne in particular. It's a very clean city. It's nice. Things work. So round about the time I'm starting to get frustrated with Indonesia, things not working, then I've come back and I get to see my friends and, beautiful partner and my parents, and you get really grateful for, things that work and efficiency. And if I need something, I can order it online, or I can go to the shop. I don't go to a shop, have a conversation with a guy, he tells me to go to another shop, having a conversation with him, he tells me to go to another shop. I spend a whole day just trying to get a set of tires. And then around about the time that I start to get over, at this point, it's the cold, I've got something, somewhere warm to look forward to and go back to. So, really blessed and feeling great.
That is, when you land in Melbourne and you get the airports, it's nice to hit the airport, but then when you get out and you get into your car and you start driving along the highway there from the Melbourne airport, and then you go under the arches, as you're coming back in through the city, it's like, it's clean. And it's like, there's just something, it's like, good to be back out of the madness. Good to be able to have a conversation with someone where you don't have to, speak. So, mate, I am looking for tires, motorbike, like having to talk like that.
The problem is that you do for a few days, and so all your friends are like, dude, I don't know what's happening to you, but the longer you go away, the slower you get. But I have, as a result of that very conversation you're describing, I've got really good at that, at speaking broken
English, mate,
and gesticulating, and I can communicate really well, right? Like we know communication, 55% is nonverbal, so I'm getting by. But I have come to the realization after nearly 10 years, I just need to learn the language. Like, what am I doing? So,
or just yell. The key is to yell. They understand you more when you yell, when you raise your voice.
There's a language to learn there, and it will make it easier. And I can stop. Hopefully, it'll take away some of the frustration. I'm sure that's at least 50% my fault. I've been there for a long time, and I can still maybe only speak 100 words. But I've been practicing. Have you guys tried Duolingo?
Yes. I was going to ask you, have you started taking some lessons on that?
I have. I'm on a 28-day streak, boys.
Go
me.
There you go.
What can you say?
What can I say?
Can you say, good morning, boys, good to see you?
Selamat pagi. Apa kabar? Good morning, boys.
You all know that. That's Bali. That's Bali basics.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
What else do you want? Come on, test me.
Um,
Do you want this water? I like water.
No, that one's an easy one.
Okay.
I would say.
Don't give me something hard. I'm on 28 days.
How do I get to?
motorbike tires?
Yes.
What'd you say?
Mate, I want to buy some motorbike tires. Have you got size 23?
I want
Oh shit!
slowly, step by step.
Nice. Benny, mate, I'm curious. It's been a couple of weeks, and for the listeners, it'll be a little longer because there's an episode between our last ones. What is the update with little Brom?
Bromley. Well, I go to a coffee place on Wednesday mornings, and now regularly on a Wednesday morning I get a large latte with double shot vodka. So now look, actually, Brom is good. We've just been away. We went to a run festival on the weekend, camper trailer, Bromley, and it went really, really well. How'd
he go out there?
He's actually a really good boy. He actually slept through the night, which is the first time he's
actually, which makes me think you're convincing yourself. He's actually a lovely boy.
He is actually he's actually a really, really good boy. He had a rough night last night, decided to bark, and we did control crying with him. So he woke up exhausted this morning, and all he wanted to do was cuddle and go back to sleep once I got him up. But look, he's a good boy. It is all consuming though. Every piece of your conversation and every moment is like, where's Brom? What's Brom doing? So it is, it's like having a baby in the house again. But it's good, mate. He's big. He put on 2 kilos in the first week from week 8 to week 9, and then 2.5 kilos last week from week 9 to week 10. So he's weighing in at 12.5 kilos at the moment at 10 weeks of age.
What's he eating?
He has 3 decent sized meals a day, and he just eats and sleeps basically.
3 seems like human standards. Don't dogs just eat morning and dinner?
No, when they're pups. So apparently, and listeners, the puppy expert listeners, feel free to write in and tell us where we got it wrong, or I got it wrong. But I read, feed your puppy as much as he wants to eat. Don't try and keep your puppy lean because he's growing heaps, and otherwise you can compromise their growth and development. So, but you should always be able to see that last rib on the dog, but don't try and keep your dog lean. So
last rib, that's good to know.
Yeah, just on pups anyway. You want to be able to just see that last rib, but it's okay for them to be a little bit fatter, and make sure they got plenty of food. So he gets a good food, and he's good, mate. He's it's good. It's good. There's a bit of a juggle this morning.
Mate, I'm going to pause you there, mate. And people call me out on this all the time. When you say it's good 3 times in a row, it's not clearly good because you're trying to convince people outside of you, and you're trying to convince yourself it's good. Yep, it's good. Yeah, let me think about that one more time. Yep, it's good.
The message from the brain, he's going back next week.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
It's good.
Good. It's good.
Look,
have you got your mornings back at least?
We want authenticity here, Ben. This is what this station is famous for. Authenticity, vulnerability, and honesty.
Yeah. I'm a selfish boy, and I like my own time, my own space, and my own things. And so, as you know, I've talked about this before. My mornings are sacred. So, look,
how is that going?
Look, it's going pretty well. I've had this crazy, for those that are on visual, this crazy infected eye for 2 weeks. And so that's made it pretty tough when you wake up and you've only got one eye to see out of.
And
So
this dog just wants to cuddle, and you need to keep your eye clean. How'd
Yeah.
you go with that?
correct. Yeah. So there's all that going on. There's just business, challenges. There's there's dog. It's like the perfect storm. And so taking all those things into consideration,
Good.
it's good.
Makes sense.
It's good.
Let's
And if I
do
didn't
this.
have a dodgy eye and, some team challenges, then I would say he's great.
Mate, you are looking a lot more upbeat now than 2 weeks ago on the on for those that are watching. Yeah, you're looking. What's changed? I know it was probably new challenges then, and now you're probably still the same and acclimatizing to them potentially. But what's changed in the last 2 weeks?
Oh, mate, you should have seen me 2 days ago. Mate, I think the big change is I can see out of my left eye today.
What? So I haven't seen you in a week.
So, listeners, Ben was a pirate for the last week, and he could only see out of one eye. You sent me a video, and I was really hoping the one that you sent me back after I said pirate, you would have actually taken me up on that and put an eye patch on for your eye. All right, so fill us in the saga with your eye.
Well, okay, a little bit of anatomy, listeners. You got your eyelid, and at the front of your eyelid, you've got eyelashes.
Yeah, here we go.
Eyelid, eyelashes. Tucked in behind the eyelashes are a couple of rows of glands. There's 2 types of glands in there, but one of the glands, I'm going to get this wrong, melobium glands. You got 50 on the top lid, 25 on the bottom lid. Incredible. And those little glands secrete an oil, and that oil coats the surface of your eye and allows the tears to kind of stick to the surface of your eye from the tear ducts and help with the lubrication across the surface of the eye, keep it smooth. Well, a couple of weeks ago when we picked up Brom, he scratched across my left eye, and that scratch got a little infected. That little bit of infection blocked up the melobium, whatever they're called, glands, and they decided to keep secreting oil, but with nowhere to come out. And so the oil builds up in your eyelid, and you end up with this huge big lump that is also infected and inflamed and nasty, right? And so for the last 2 weeks, I've just had this oozing, oily pus coming out of my left eye, and the eye's been so swollen and sore that it's just pretty much just been closed. So that's after 2 weeks is yesterday for the first time. The eye was kind of open, and it's starting to feel like it might be getting better. But I was saying to Janesh earlier, I did have an appointment booked yesterday and went and saw an ophthalmologist to actually have the gland surgically removed, because once it gets to a certain point, sometimes the only way you can get it fixed is remove the gland. And I woke up yesterday and my eye was a little bit better, and I think it was the threat of having the gland removed. My body's gone, fuck, let's do something about this overnight. Anyway, mate, I'm heading in the right direction, but it has been, it's been a challenge. And I shared with one of my groups last week, when I was younger and I got crook for whatever reason, a cold or, something, a cut, I just kept doing what I would normally do. And I would say to my body, sort that shit out. Take care of that. I got work to do. I got things to get sorted. I got blah, blah, blah. And my body would just, in its own way, get it all sorted. What I've noticed is that as I've got older, I can't just delegate that to my body. I actually need to participate in the healing process, and that I actually need to stop. I need to rest. I need to, change my nutrition. I need to do whatever. I actually need to participate in the healing process. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't have to. I could just let my body do its thing. Have you guys noticed that yet, that you've actually got to participate? Or are you still in the phase of my body will sort it out, I'll just keep soldering on?
No, I have to participate now if I want to go quicker. I can't just solder on. I try to. I think this year I have not. Previous years I have, and I pay the price later. Like either something's more injured, it prolongs it. But yeah, no, now I do. I do. I think was it last week? Last week was a little under the weather, and I had to make like in my head was like I got to make instantaneous changes. But then your head like your logic part of your mind goes, why aren't I doing those things all the time anyway? But yeah, I have to like more water, greens, like just a green smoothie every day, and like super dense veggies and all of that getting through my body. And all right, how do I kick this? And taking and knowing what are my main things for that day and go, does this really matter? Do I just need to sleep? Do I need to have a nap here? Do I but when I say it out loud, I'm like, why aren't I doing that all the time? Probably because I probably think I don't need to. But yeah, no, I have to. Otherwise, it's like, oh yeah, I'll probably still be under the weather now. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think I'm on the cusp now. I hate to admit it, where I think I need a little bit more conscious effort. Like I had my yeah, I think so. Yeah, I had my ankle. That was 2 years. Like they told me, oh, the classic, you might not do those things again, which fired me up. I'm like, I'll show you. But I had to consciously, if I hadn't done the work on that, yeah, I'm still in pain now. Like I find that it's just moved from one ligament to the next ligament to the next ligament to the next ligament. And I've just been chasing it with a little bit of physio, just trying to. So I think if I hadn't been an adult about that and I just left it up to the body, yeah, done. And Indo's hard to tell though, because it's just so prone for infection there that the slightest little cut, it's pretty much now for me, it's a guaranteed. That belief probably doesn't really help. But yeah, the smallest cuts seem to get infected and they take a long time to heal. You can't really go in the ocean. The ocean cleans it, but it just ulcifies and you get these deep holes. So yeah, I agree. Now I'm conscious a little bit more deliberate with my first aid too. Like when I was a kid, whatever. You just let it bleed. It'll coagulate, it'll fix itself exactly like you described. Whereas now I'll literally pull out a little thing, and I never would have done that 5 years ago even. So yeah, more conscious now for sure.
Right, Benny, just coming back to your eye, like when it was closed and you are, what did you change? Before I ask you this next question
too.
Yeah.
I get that quite regularly. Like once every 6 months, I call it a sty. I don't even know if that's what it is, but the whole eyelid blows up, and I had like a white pimple right on and it's so painful.
So there is a sty. It's different. Sty is an infection of the eyelash, which is painful. Whereas this is a blocked gland, which you might be getting too. And the key is to keep your eyelashes clean, because sometimes we get some flaky, sometimes you might wake up and you're just eyelashes a little bit crusty, a little bit, like at first thing in the morning. You got to make sure you clear that away. Clear that bit of crust away if you've got that crusty. It's called blepharitis. It's a little bit of inflammation or irritation of your follicles on your eyelashes, which is no big deal, but if it's kind of left, you can end up with that blockage. Anyway, what was your question, Janesh?
What did you alter? What did you change to mend yourself?
There must be some antibiotics in there for an infected eye duct. There must be some. Are you doing hot press? They would have told you hot press, salt, hot press, as much as you can. And you're like, well, it fucking works. So what do you want me to do? Be hot pressing every second? And they're like, yeah. Hot
compression. So it kind of softens so what it does is the oil coagulates, it hardens, thickens. So you put the hot on so it melts the fats so it comes out easier. and then you slightly just milk the eye.
Oh,
I probably over milked it because I
sounds lovely.
I ended up blood milking out. I might have got a bit over zealous. But yeah, the antibiotic lotion and the dreaded oral antibiotics. So all that, and then rest, mate. I went through the entire Star Wars trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever it is, the 3 trilogies, which was good. Relaxing back on my chair. Speaking of Brom and relaxing on my chair, I've got this very beautiful leather recliner from some Sweden, Scandinavia, fancy pantsy chair with all the hydraulic, electric tilting and all the cool stuff. So I'm fully tilted back, legs up, right back, watching the show. Brom's mucking around. We've now got him off leash because he was on leash the first week and a half. Now we let him,
roam.
Mistake, roam. Anyway, very quiet, very quiet. He must be asleep under my chair. Well, It's time to get up. I hit the button. Chair's not coming back down again. What's going on? Oh, it must be out of battery.
He's chewed the wire.
He's been under there and he has done a bit of chewing, but unplugged. He's pulled the wires all out, and yes,
better than chewed.
It's better than chew.
There's chew. So don't tell Michelle. But what I did afterwards is I got hot paprika and a little bit of oil. Made this paste.
And put it on all the wires.
I painted all the wires with hot paprika paste. So if he goes to put his nose under there again, he's gonna have some hot paprika. And yes, please feel free to write in, animal people, about naughty Ben.
He's going to end up developing a real love for hot paprika. He's going to stop eating his food and be like, "Come on,
give me more.
Where's the chili? Where's the chili?" So what was I doing in the chair though last week? I actually took 3 days off last week because it was just so miserable, and watched Star Wars, and chilled out in the chair. And when I say I watched it, sort of one eye closing, listening to Star Wars, watching a bit of Star Wars, etc. But mate, it's George Lucas, right? Really interesting how he's brought so much of that Eastern philosophy into the Star Wars trilogy, and the whole idea of the Force and good and evil and the dark side. And the gist of it is, when was the last time you watched Star Wars, boys?
I reckon during COVID. I think I did.
Yeah, I
think I
watched 1 or 2, but no, never. Well, the last time I watched them all in a row, split across like 2 different decades, probably.
I know it's really interesting. So Lucas, when he first released Star Wars 1, it was called Episode 4.
Yeah,
to think that through, to go, I'm going to call this Episode 4 because there must be 3 episodes before it. But this is the first Star Wars, right? So it goes Episode 4, Episode 5, Episode 6, and then it goes back and we do Episode 1, and then Episode 2, and then Episode 3, and then we go forward and do Episode 7, 8, and 9. That's how they were released.
And that's because he didn't have the technology to do Episode 1, 2, and 3 at the time. Was that the?
Well, I think there was. To be honest, I haven't looked it up, but I reckon he's thought
Something
this
like
more than the technology. Because I got to be honest, Episode 1, 2, and 3, the tech, the what is it called?
The special effects.
Yeah, rough, I reckon. Probably rougher than the original Star Wars. Anyway, Episode 1 is Anakin Skywalker is discovered. Of course, Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. So we go right back to the beginning, way before Luke, etc. We're now sort of Obi-Wan, where he's first coming into his own, and we've got this Anakin Skywalker. Anyway, Anakin Skywalker is discovered. He's got, the Jedi realizes that he's got this incredible force in him, brings him to the Jedi Council, and he says, I want to train this young boy to be my Padawan, my apprentice and a Jedi. And Yoda, looks at him and he says, oh, there is much fear in this one. There is much fear in this one. And of course, fear is the thing that turns you to the dark side. If you have the force and you have fear, you move more to the dark side. And I thought that was really interesting, because if we look at any human behavior that is unresourceful, anger, frustration, blame, excuses, all that behavior that's really can be unresourceful, it's all fear driven. It's all fear driven. People behave badly around fear. So I thought that was really interesting that he labeled the dark side and the use of the force, that it turns you to the dark side when there is fear inside of you. And I think about that, and I was thinking about the times when I probably have behaved badly, and it's fear driven. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we actually I don't know now. What are we? We're 2023 now. Probably 5 years ago, Matt and I ran a program called Fearless, and it was the notion of making decisions out of fear or making decisions out of love. And a lot of that premise of that program was things came out of that fear, like unresourceful, all the things you go, whoa, and it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if you continue to make decisions out of that, your mind, your head, the people around you all justify those reasonings, because like you look around, a lot of people are making decisions out of fear. And yeah, it's like this doom and gloom, because doom and gloom sells as well, right? And it's like, it's that, and like misery likes company. It's easier to make decisions out of fear. It's easier. It's like that. Just before the podcast, I was reading a blurb on entropy, and it's like that disorder. It's easy if you like align fear and disorder. I think it's easy for that to happen, and I think it's harder to catch when you're doing that.
Yeah, I agree, because the mind justifies, and it comes up with excuses. It can convince you of anything, and it'll convince you that you're not being fearful, you're being practical. You're not being fearful, you're being reasonable. And until you have someone on the outside of that witness the behavior, sometimes you can't identify that you're in a cycle of fear and you're being reactive, and you're actually creating the very things that you don't want to happen, and then trying your best to mitigate them with the same thing that produced them. It's really interesting.
And a fear, it taps, like in Star Wars and possibly in real life, that, the fear taps the force just as much as the opposite. And it can be really powerful. It can be really powerful to be in fear. It can really drive change, but is it positive change? Is the
It's interesting.
Oh, sorry, we're all going to chime in at the same time here. I think.
Go for it, mate.
Do you mind?
Yeah, go.
On that both are creative. That's what I find really interesting. That both are an idea in the future of how things might go. Do you know what I mean? Whether you decide to be optimistic or you're fearful. Like when we're at the summit, we watch people. It's like 40, 50 people a day do the same activity. So you see the patterns, you see how it manifests, you see how it's justified. And, a fear of heights, for example, a fear of falling, you can see how that stops people from being able to move. And they just can't put one foot in front of the other. And then they come up with a justification for why that thing isn't for them, or there's no point in doing it. And a lot of the time it's what if. They have this thought of, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? And if that was to happen, then I'd be really in trouble. And then this and this. And in that moment, nothing's happening. And one of the strategies I'll use is, use what if. What if I fall and die? What if I don't? What if everyone laughs at me because I don't reach the bar? What if I get the bar and everyone cheers my name? You can do both. And it can be a really powerful strategy to play the what if game and finish it in a positive way. But it's almost like, I think Janesh led to it, that we're conditioned for such a large proportion of our life that what if the negative, that we get really good at it. And if no one teaches us to confront that and to challenge it, then we become masters of negativity, of, as you said, the dark side. What are your thoughts, Janesh?
I think it's when you make, sometimes, depending on the circle you're in, you make some decisions not in fear when there's a bunch of people around you. It makes you look crazy because it's so common. And I know for myself, I've gone, oh, am I on the right track here? Because everyone's like, and it's not not just negative Nancy's, right? Like they have a logical, reasonable, rational like justification that makes sense, but it's made out of fear. So I'm like, whoa, it's hard. It is like against the norm. It's against the grain. And you're like, it's easy to go to that one. And you're like, that makes sense. And you look, I know when I say you look, I've definitely felt crazy or go like, you're just off in the clouds, Janesh, because that will never work, right? And it's not even that will never work. It's like, now we're making a fear-based decision. But at the same time, I've caught myself. Sorry, I got a question. How do you differentiate the hedging your risk and making a decision out of fear? So in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed markets changing, right? Within education, within coaching, within different businesses, right? So I'm like, I'm aware things are slightly changing, and people are a little hesitant here and there, and blah blah, and voicing that and going, how do you make a decision? Because that's, I would say, off a knee-jerk reaction, that would be fear. But at the same time, if I didn't look at that would that be irresponsible? How do you differentiate hedging your bets and being intelligent about something and making a decision out of fear? Because I don't know. Now that we say it, I'm thinking the last few weeks, I'm like, I've made quite a few decisions out of fear. But I'm like, and in my head, I'm justifying it to myself saying, no, but this is logical, rational, and this. And I go, if I didn't, and I steered a ship into an iceberg, when I'm noticing temperatures going down and there's going to be ice coming up, fuck, that's irresponsible.
Yeah, but it's also irresponsible to never sail your ship, because that's what ships are built for.
Yeah, but if I'm sailing it away from this iceberg, but I'm making a choice based on, say, the temperature, right? And temperature's getting colder, I go, there's going to be an iceberg coming. Is that fear-based? And how do you differentiate hedging and making good decisions based on the information you have?
I feel like it's a good question. I feel like there's a fear feeling. When we talk about the symptoms of fear, it's the fight, flight, or freeze. And I think feeling into, I'm in flight mode, I'm in fight mode, I'm in freeze mode, and it's being and that mode is being driven by fear, not by something else. And you think about the Jedis, back to Star Wars, when you've got the bad dudes that are using the Force for evil on the dark side, and then you've got the Jedis on the light side. They both go to battle the same, right? They both fight each other. They're both got a level of aggression's not the word that I want to use, but I'll use that word aggression because there's a better word. Determination and resilience a desire to win, but it's only the dark side that use fear to drive that. So, I wonder whether you could go out in the boat when the weather's getting colder and you're worried about icebergs, or you're thinking about icebergs, but not make a decision to turn around based on fear.
Yeah.
The feeling that goes with it.
I think, yeah, I resonate with that. That it's, I think of flow, and flow is like almost the opposite. It's a space of no thinking and performing at a really high standard. Whereas fear is prefrontal cortex, right? It's like it's thinking about possible scenarios that could happen in the future. And there's a balance there between making good decisions where you do weigh things up, you do use rational reason, you crunch the numbers, okay, you look at what are the risks, all of them, what are the ones I can mitigate, and what are the ones that I've just got to trust that I got the skill set to get through it, maybe, so you bring both components. But there's always going to be people that magnify the risk to stop you from doing it. Like, I don't have the answer, but all I know is, and it reinforces that point that you initially started the question with, which is people will tell you you're crazy. Yesterday I decided I'm only going to be here for a few more days. It's very cold. I'm going to embrace the cold. I'm going to go cold plunge. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to go up to mum and dad's pool. I'm going to have a cold plunge. I'm in my jeans. I'm taking off my shirt. I'm getting into my boardies. Dad comes out. What are you doing? I'm going for a swim. I said, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. You're actually insane. You're going to get a cold. You're going to get sick. Is that what you want? And he just goes back inside. And I'm just taking off my clothes, giggling to myself. I'm like, actually the opposite, Dad. Like, this should prevent me from getting cold. Believe it or not. And I go on and do my thing. And he's right. It was freezing. It was horrible. I did find moments of peace. And I think that kind of sums it up, right? Like, people see something that isn't normal, that isn't culturally what we're conditioned. Comfort. I think comfort is number one in our society. Like, we put this idea of comfort on a pedestal, and safe. It's safe, comfortable, and effective. They're like the three priorities that we have in Melbourne.
So how would you say, what is the difference between playing it safe and just playing it from a fearful state? Right. So I'm definitely will push that boundary personally, but I know people in my circles that go, you're just reckless. And I'm like, no, I'm just living. And they look at me and scoff. But it's like, no. It's like I'm playing it safe. Their rationale is that they're playing it safe, which I do see that end of it slightly, not fully, but slightly. I think the older I get, I see that a little bit more. I'm finding that, am I in the clouds or do I play it safe? And how do I find a bit more of playing it safe? But is there a difference on playing it safe and playing things from a fearful state? Or is it the same thing?
There's a line.
What defines that line, then?
Whether or not you can pull it off or not. If you crash and burn, they'll all say you were on the wrong side of the line, mate. You should have pulled your head in. A little bit too risky.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Ben? You've gone silent and you're more wise and more.
No, you're pulling it all in, mate. I'm waiting for this golden nugget to drop out.
It's gonna come from Ben. I can sense it.
I think it's a really interesting conversation. I just say I took my glasses off. That's when okay. So,
yeah.
We're all leaning in.
I know.
Give us your wisdom.
Just do it one more time. So Uh, um, what were we talking about?
It was you were too engulfed in your glasses moment. Mate, so what is what's the difference between what is the difference, and is there a difference of playing it safe and playing it from a fearful state? Is there a difference? I know you said that feeling, but then the people that rationale things and tell them like that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like they've got a really good feeling that they're playing it safe, and this is the best decision they're making with the information they've got, with the experience that they've had, right? So their feeling is great.
Yeah,
they're not having this feeling of like I'm hesitating. They're not having a hesitating feeling, right? So of that potential, that fear-inducing decision. But what is there a difference?
I think it's relative. I think what Maddie said is right. There's a relativity to it, that it's relative to the person and the environment and the circumstances. And I think, kind of what you were saying before, there's a bit of hindsight that comes in, like we and people will judge us based on hindsight. We go to do something and it doesn't work out, and people go, "Oh, you were stupid. You see, you shouldn't have." And there's this hindsight that comes in, and the judgment that comes around that. And our decision that we made may have been made purely out of logic and not fear-driven, and in the time the most sensible thing. What is for sure, I think, is that we live in a world that is impermanent. Everything is impermanent, and things are going to go wrong. And I think embracing that we can make decisions not based out of fear, based out of being relatively, based on our level of carefulness and calculations, based on our relative position. Like the position I'm in now, we see this, when it comes to investing, once you kind of move into your late 50s, early 60s, it's time to go out of the aggressive aspect of the market, for example, the stock market, and to move into more blue chip, right? But when you're young and there's plenty of time ahead of you, you can go in the more aggressive penny stock, that have got high fluctuations when you're younger. So it's all relative based on your circumstances, etc. So I think just recognizing that everything's relative, but for all of us, our situation is impermanent. Our best of best decisions still sometimes don't turn out. Life happens. And then when it does happen, it's, again, we've talked about this so many times on this podcast, it's the meaning we put to it. And do we put a meaning to it that drives more fear into us or less? And if we put a meaning into it that drives more fear, then it's easier for fear to then drive our future decision making. And that's tricky. It's tricky. I think that the fact that we're human, we're going to experience fear. But does that, whilst we might experience it, do we let it become the majority? When I go back to Star Wars, and many of these characters that turn to the dark side, there was this point of battle inside of them. Do I stay on the light side or the dark side? And there was this battle that they kind of waged. And for many, they had the battle and they went to the light side. And for many, they had the battle and they went to the dark side. And so do we fertilize? Do we water the fear seeds, or do we water the other?
Yeah.
Mm.
I think just on that as well, that it's the making a decision to do something challenging, moving out of the comfort zone, activates fear. And then we use our reason, our rationale, that part of our brain, to address the fear and then do it anyway. And that's called alive. And yeah, you might fail. And when you fail, hopefully you don't die. You might. People will say you did it wrong. But what makes you feel the most alive? Because sitting at home in a warm house on a comfy chair is nice, but it's not nice every day. If you do that every single day and you never have a period of risk, of challenge, of adversity, that becomes a miserable grave. Like, it's horrible.
And why is it, Matt, when you say that, why is it like when you do potentially fail, and we all will fail at something at some point in time, the naysayers just come out and they go, oh, yeah, see, I told you so. It's quite risky.
We know
I would do
why.
that. And it shits me. Like, I have no patience for that. And I will speak my mind, and I've got myself in trouble, and I hate it. And I'm like,
I'll have you back there, mate.
I don't respectfully say it anymore. I say it. I like to think I say it a little bit better than what I'm about to say it, but I'm like, fucking, you're not in the arena, so shut the fuck up. And you didn't take the shot. So either give me kudos and say, hey, pick yourself up. Don't give me I told you so, because you didn't have the shot. Right? So shut up.
But that's the dark side coming out in you there.
It is, but it's not fear-based. That's love-based. Guys, just shut up. You're a prick.
Oh, that feels fear-based to me. That feels like the fear of people are judging me, and am I good enough? Like, am I, you know? Oh, they've picked that scab of, at the time I thought I was good enough, but it didn't work out, and fuck, maybe I'm not good enough. And they're telling me I'm not good enough. They tell me I shouldn't have done it. They tell me that I could be capable, and feeds the fear, and the dark side comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get anger, we get frustration. How would you do that differently if the dark side wasn't to take hold? If the conversation, the story in your head wasn't to be fear driven, when things don't work out and people go, Janesh, you dummy, you shouldn't have done that in the first place. How would you do it differently?
Mate, I would channel my inner Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, on this binge, Apple TV, Ted Lasso, get on it. Oh my God, it is epic. I will channel my inner Ted Lasso, right? It's Ted Lasso, this American soccer coach, no idea about soccer, goes over to England and coaches. Right?
Sounds like you coaching.
I know. But he genuinely will go, okay, great, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. And but not passive aggressive, genuinely say that. So if you say, how would you do that in a different way out of fear based? I'll be like, okay, great, thank you. And genuinely go, thank you for that comment. So he goes through this down, and everyone's calling him wanker, right? And he didn't understand what wanker means. And then he finds out what wanker means. And this old man goes past each day, goes, hey, wanker. And he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Welcome. Have a great day. And he just genuinely means it, right? He just doesn't let it affect him, but doesn't not engage either, which is their art, which is a super art, like a bloody Dalai Lama art.
That's
right?
a Jedi, mate. That's Jedi. That's Yoda.
That's the Jedi for sure. I remember. Have any of you been bullied before? Has anyone here been bullied? You remember going back to school being bullied?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got bullied by, I'm gonna say his name. He was a bully. So Tom Caboni.
Tom.
There it is.
Tom.
I dropped your name. I could have masked you in. No, that's not very nice. Okay. Anyway, so I used to get bullied for many years when I was in really, it was kind of year 3, year 4, and then it stopped for a few years, and then year 6, end of year 6, year 7, year 8. It was on. And I remember asking for advice. I remember asking Mum. No, not a good idea. Mum's advice was lovely. It was really beautiful. I was like, you're beautiful. Don't let them affect you. If they give you a hard time for big ears, tell them Mickey Mouse has big ears and he's famous. So, something like that. That was not good, because everything I used from Mum ended up being more ammunition the bully would use against me, right? And he's committed, so he could, next thing I know, I'm fucking Mickey Mouse. Great, thanks, Mum. That was really helpful. Eventually, I realized that I need to ask for advice from someone who potentially